Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to United in Strengths. I'm Ryan Niemiec here with Ruth Pierce, and we're with the VIA Institute on Character. And we're delighted that you're here for our community initiative here that has the tagline to remember to pause to breathe, to remember to turn to your best 24 qualities, and to remember to turn to people in your life to connect. So remember, breathe, and connect. And so today is a new topic day. So today's session was really decided today, actually. And it's a topic I'm kind of excited about. It's a topic we don't really bring forth in any of our current courses that we have online at the VIA Institute. And it's a topic called Strengths Redemption. So we'll call it an experimental topic. It's not like this is a topic that has all sorts of research and I'm going to be talking about lots of studies. I mean, maybe a couple will come up that I'll mention spontaneously, but this is kind of just a unique way to think about difficulties in life and a unique way to think about strengths. So we can start off by just kind of, realizing the obvious that, people will frustrate us, right? We get frustrated by people. We get triggered by people. We get easily upset. We become reactive with people in our closest relationships. People we don't know, people we do know, we get upset and angry because of what somebody else might do. We feel that in ourselves. So there's many times when then we're frustrated and then we maybe say things we wish we wouldn't have said, do things we wish we wouldn't have done, and we're not our best self in those moments. And so that applies to every person on the planet. Nobody is their best self all the time. And if they say that they are, then of course they're either completely not very self-aware or they're just being dishonest. So it's normal to make mistakes and to get upset. But the interesting thing here is, from a strengths perspective, we can all be redeemed. And by redeemed, I don't mean it in a religious way. I mean it in a strengths way. So if we think of the word redemption, it's when we do something wrong and we try to pursue healing, or we try to make up for it in some way. In other words, we kind of pursue a road of healing or redemption because of something we did, and we're trying to redeem ourselves in a particular situation, or maybe we're trying to redeem ourselves in one of our close relationships, that sort of thing. So in some ways, it's if we can take action for the good after we've done something wrong. If we can take action for the good, of course, using our character strengths to do that, then we might find what I'm terming here strengths redemption. Now, this is not to say that that's going to cure the situation or be enough, but it's a step in the right direction. And it's a step toward healing. So that's what this session is about taking that next step toward healing, toward redeeming ourselves in that particular situation or with that particular relationship. So with this, I'm reminded of a story from a few years ago. I was struggling to turn out of a parking lot in a downtown garage. I worked downtown Cincinnati many days, and as you know, in big cities, it can be difficult to get out of a garage like that. And, there's all sorts of, there's a one-way street and there's all sorts of traffic. And so this can be time-consuming and challenging. And I, at the moment, was just very eager to get home, get back to my family. So I just forced my way into the traffic, into the lane. And in doing that, I did cut off another driver. And I didn't hit them, I just cut them off. And I then was the recipient of a whole lot of angry honking of the horn. And we all know that horns, we can use them emotionally, right? So I think we all know that you can give a little tap, and it might be just kind of like a little notice to somebody else, like, oh, just wanted to let you know that the light has turned green, you can go, a little gentle tap. And then there can be these very loud drones laying on the horn or repeated horns, and that's somebody's angry. So an angry honk. So I was receiving a lot of angry honks for what I did. And then, as luck would have it, a red light is up ahead, and the driver and I are about to meet at the red light side by side. And simultaneously, we both actually rolled down our windows. And my heart was beginning to race at this point, and I knew I was in for it because I was I was the guilty party here. And so, I was thinking, well, I'm the guilty one. I'm going to wait and see what this person's approach is. What's this driver going to do? And at the same time, I was actually filled with a little bit of curiosity, and I just can't help it. It's one of my signature strengths. And so I was curious, what's going to happen here? How is this person going to come after me? Are they going to curse me out with a lot of words? Are they going to just go off on a big blaming thing? Are they going to somehow be kind with the situation and forgiving and kind of polite about it? Would they pull out a weapon, which is not uncommon to think of actually in this kind of situation, at least in the United States? Maybe they forgot about the whole thing, and this is all just in my head. So I didn't know what was gonna happen. And the woman in the car that was beside me had certainly not forgotten what I did, and she dove in head first, yelling and blaming and screaming at me, and the anger on her face was intense and hostile by my perception. And but the issue is I took the bait, and I decided to argue back in return. I didn't like being yelled at, so I started to get back into it. So we're going back and forth, yelling back and forth through this red light. And I began to think as I was yelling, I was like, how silly is this? How silly is this that I'm doing this? I'm the one that was at wrong, and here I am battling back and forth with this person. And eventually it was a stalemate, and the light turned green, and she drove off angrily, and I drove off a different direction, and I felt worse. And I really felt worse because of, not just because anger can often make us not feel good, but also just for what I had done. I had regretted that I didn't admit that I was at fault. And I thought about how things might have been different for her, the other driver, if I would have taken a different approach, if I would have apologized, if I would have given her the opportunity for forgiveness. And that's what was going through my mind, saying, gosh, why, immediately, why didn't I do that? And instead I took a non-skillful, mindless approach and met anger with anger, argument with argument. And I felt especially bad, actually, because I felt like I single-handedly made her day worse because of this, when I could have maybe made it better. There's no saying that if I would have been very sweet and apologetic, but still I had a shot at it, and I didn't take it. And then I just started to think about the ripple effect, the negative ripple effect of that seemingly simple thing, simple issue. Some people might have just kind of, okay, it happened and you move on. But I started to think about the people she was going to encounter later that day. And would she be bringing them a little bit more anger and frustration? Maybe. Would she yell at her kids more now? Would she honk at other drivers? Maybe she would have anyway if it wasn't for me. But still, I certainly didn't help, and maybe I made things worse. And then I thought about my own character strengths being underused. I underused kindness, for sure. I underused the judgment, critical thinking, underused the bigger perspective strength, because a mindfulness approach would have done more of what we call decentering, which is when we sit back and we take in the wider perspective. And so I was just at a loss in that particular moment. And of course I could make excuses. I had a stressful day at work, and I hadn't filled up my bucket, and I came to that situation without energy, and so on. But regardless of the excuses, it's on me. But what was interesting is I noticed that a little switch in myself as I was determined from that moment to become more mindful in later, as I kept driving, more mindful, and that if I could do anything to correct that situation in the future, I would. And about 10 minutes later on the same drive, I saw, and this is just sort of unconsciously happening in my mind, I saw a homeless woman at the corner along the drive. And normally, the last couple of times I had passed by this particular woman without stopping, and I felt compelled, and that would be the right word. I just felt suddenly compelled to give her a little bit of money and a packaged granola bar of food that I had. So I felt compelled to do that, so I did it. She thanked me, and then I drove off. And then as I was thinking about that, 5 minutes later, that I was thinking, gosh, I couldn't redeem myself to the person that I got in the argument with. I don't know who that was. I couldn't pick that person. For all I know, that person's on this United in Strengths call right now. I'll never know who that person was. But I was able to still try to take a step forward toward redemption. I'm not saying it's redemption, but toward redemption by doing the next right thing, the next good thing with strengths. You could say for the universe in some ways. And, I wasn't drawing a conscious connection in the moment when I was giving the homeless woman, the food and the money. But it was more of in retrospect, seeing that there's some redemptive quality here in the strengths use. And in that particular incident, it happened to be the character strength of, I would say, is kindness. So I wondered then, was my awareness of the flawed behavior on my part coupled with the intention to be better next time, that intention, did that spur the attitude, maybe mostly unconsciously, a little bit conscious, but mostly unconscious, toward greater strengths use? If I like looking at things from a spiritual perspective too. So I think of it this way as well, that in that moment I had committed I think of the world as interconnected and people as interconnected. So I had committed a tear in the web of human interconnectedness when I engaged in the argument, even though it was my fault. I had committed a tear in the web of human interconnectedness, but then sought to repair that tear as soon as possible through character strengths expression. And in this case, putting something good out there into the universe to try to make up for it. And that's maybe what we could think of as strengths redemption. That's what, as I've thought about this more over the years since that happened, thinking of this as strengths redemption. And without the strengths use, without the kindness, I might have, not only might the woman have done worse that day, I might have done worse too. I might have been harboring the anger, carrying it for others, but there was some relief with the redemptive quality. So as we think about this, and again, as I thought about this over the years, there's sort of these three steps that we could try to operationalize here. And again, this is just to make this practical. I'm not saying this is a research-based 3-step approach, but something for you to think about and try out, because I don't think I'm the only one here that's made mistakes or errors or regrets certain behaviors and so on. So we might think of it as 3 steps. One is an awareness of the mistake. So we have to use a sense of honesty, using our character strength of honesty and being honest with ourselves. So honesty turned inward, and in many cases, honesty turned outward. And then number 2, make some kind of intention to do better, to improve ourselves, to be more mindful the next time, to try to think when we might be in a similar situation with driving, or when we might get in a fight with somebody else, argument with somebody else, and make that intention to try to do better the next time. And then number 3, to then use our strengths. And in some situations, those strengths might be a heavy dose of bravery, very difficult. Or it might be a whole lot of honesty with somebody, or it might be forgiving ourselves in some ways. So there wouldn't be a rule of which strength it must be. It doesn't always have to be kindness, for example, but we could try to determine that, of what's the way that we can bring healing to that relationship directly. Like I said, I couldn't go to that particular woman specifically, so I could maybe do the next best thing and do something good for the universe, even if it's this big and small. So we might think about that is how can I continue, how could we continue to find more strengths redemption when we make the mistakes? Because of course we're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna screw up from time to time. So that's kind of one story. I want to tell you one more story too, and then we'll do a little meditation on this. And so this is a story that's quite different. It happened just a few days ago, and it's about, can we sort of catalyze strengths redemption for somebody else? So let me share what I mean. So my oldest son, who's 9, he and I were going to watch my other son play soccer or football, depending on what country you're hearing this from. And so we were at the soccer field and watching my son, and I had gotten notice that everybody, even though it's outdoors, everybody must wear a mask. Parents, sideline, people, the players on the field, who are all people with different disabilities, did not have to, and didn't, but everybody else on the sidelines did. So I had my mask on, and I was insisting that my son have his mask on, and over again I was insisting, and he wouldn't do it. And of course that caused some tension between the two of us, and I started to say, well, if you don't put your mask on, which is required on the sidelines, then you won't be able to go to this party that was going to be the next day. It was a party in the neighborhood with one of his friends, and he just dug his heels in. He just wasn't going to do it. So I gave him 2, 3, 4 chances, because it was outdoors. He was about 30 feet from people, so I understand that it really wasn't that urgent for him in this situation. But it was the principle of the matter, and trying to insist some boundaries as a parent. At least that was my call. There's not overly right and wrong when it comes to parenting. We just do the best we can. So I was doing the best I can in that moment, and telling him he had to. And so he didn't do it. So he lost on the party. I said, there's no party for you then. And then the next day then, which was the day of the party, he was getting ready for school. And I told him, well, you can still get to go to this party you desperately want to go to, but you must report to me on some use of kindness or bravery at school that you do. And so we talked about what that means to be kind at school, to be brave at school. You have to give me 1 act of bravery you did, or 3 acts of kindness that you did. And so he understood. He wasn't overly happy with that. And again, it's a judgment call on whether that's even a good parenting thing to do. But that's what I did. And then you'll have earned or strengths redemption to be able to go to this party. And he came back from school, and of course, one of my first questions, other than "How's your day?" was, so did you do any kind of acts? And he went through and he named some acts of kindness that he did do that day. And I wasn't, by the way, going to be judgmental of what they were. If they were very trivial, good enough for me, as long as he's thinking about it and putting forth the effort. I wasn't going to grade. I think that's kind of the wrong decision in terms of grading people's character strengths use. So I wasn't going to grade it, but I just wanted to make sure he was thinking about it and doing it. And he did it. So he got to go to the party. So I thought of that then, as some strengths redemption for him, and that I was trying to catalyze redemption of maybe his behavior, which wasn't listening to his parents, to then following strengths use and doing good for other people, which is what his kind acts were doing. And I wanted to give some flexibility. It didn't have to be kindness. It could be bravery. We even talked about fairness a little bit. So basically different kinds of strengths being used in a way that's going to help somebody else. Because you never know if there's going to be an easy opportunity to stick up against a bully on the playground or something. So that's another way. So I offer these as things for us to think about. And when we get to our community part here in a little bit, if you have your own examples of sharing of your own strengths redemption, or maybe ideas for when you catalyze strengths redemption in someone else, a relationship partner or a child or a client, it's just an interesting way to think about some of these things. And some of you will resonate with that, and some of you might not. And one last thing I'll say before the meditation is that, this theme here of strengths redemption is all about trying to pursue goodness, trying to use our character strengths for goodness, which is a key quality of these character strengths. It's one of the key parts of the definition, is that these are positive parts of our personality that we can use to create a better society, to create a better culture within our family, within our school, within our organization, within our team. That's what a lot of this work is all about. And so when we start to pursue goodness with our strengths, we are doing several different things. We're creating a better form of ourself. A better part of ourself is coming forth, for one. We're also creating an opportunity for that goodness reciprocity. Whereas imagine if I would have been so sweet and apologetic to the driver originally, I could have created some kind of virtuous circle of goodness back and forth, potentially. But just when we're using our strengths for goodness in general, like when my son was helping out another kid at recess, his good kindness was then percolating to that person, who could then be kind themselves. So we can create a good cycle. And third, when we use our strengths for goodness, there's this potential of elevation, which you might remember we talked about in United in Strengths back on a Friday in, I don't know what, Ruth, maybe the fourth week that we did this, where the whole talk was on elevation, the emotion of elevation. So go back and listen to that one, because that's a really important topic. But elevation means that other people seeing acts of goodness can feel emotionally uplifted and inspired to do goodness themselves. So if my son which he was saying he was doing, was helping out somebody else at the lunch line, how they can go through the lunch line. They had never gone through the lunch line before. So he was guiding them through it. Then someone else watching them, that's not part of them, that's just innocently, observing, they could then be inspired to do good themselves, whether that's an adult or a kid. So that we know there's a whole lot of science now on elevation, just witnessing the goodness of others. So it's a wonderful topic and very much strength-based. It's very much linked, by the way, with the character strength called appreciation of beauty and excellence. So those are three different levels of why we would want to use our strengths for goodness, among all the other reasons too, that it's good for ourselves, good for others. So, okay, so let's take some of this and let's play it out a little bit in a meditation. And it's not so much the framework of this meditation, I don't think, that really matters. Really, meditation is just about kind of creating some space. So we'll just create a little bit of pausing just to breathe. We might, up to this point, I know I'm a fast talker, so we're thinking about what I'm saying. You're thinking about examples, and our mind's going in all sorts of different things. So now, slow it down, pave the path a little bit, and just be. And I'll kind of lead us through this a little bit with some pausing for us just to reflect and breathe and see where strength redemption might apply for you. So as you occupy right now a position of strength, sitting or standing in a way that feels strong for you, I invite you to anchor with your in-breath and out-breath, which means to be aware when you're breathing in and aware when you're breathing out. And with your eyes open and focused ahead on some spot in front of you, or with your eyes closed, just allowing yourself to anchor into that in-breath and that out-breath. I invite you to consider, as you breathe here, a recent mistake that you made. Maybe it was something you said, maybe it was something you did to someone, maybe you were just a little bit rude, a little bit curt, maybe angry, frustrated, and you showed it to the person and they were a little offended or upset. Maybe you did something and you hurt somebody's feelings. Maybe you had a lapse of judgment when normally you have very good judgment. Essentially, a time when you caused somebody else at least a little bit of suffering. So just call that to your mind as you breathe in and out. And just starting with that self-honesty, admitting the mistake or the error that you made. Not condoning it, not to name it and quickly let it go, but sitting there with it. May or may not be comfortable to do, but your breathing is there to help you to hold that within you, to help you stick with honesty to yourself. And as you breathe and as you're honest with yourself, you can make some kind of intention to do better next time. Maybe even just saying it like that to yourself. The intention to be more mindful next time, to use your character strengths a little bit stronger in a helping way next time. And there might not be an exact next time with this particular person or this situation. And so that's okay to name and be honest about as well. And knowing that you can still take a step forward and do that next good thing, that next right thing, that next strength-based thing. And consider taking it a step further and asking yourself, which character strength might you want to bring forth next time in a similar situation? Is it an elevation of forgiveness or fairness, bravery, persevering zest, creative curiosity, a bit more self-regulation next time, prudence or humility? Or maybe you need to manage an overused curiosity, an overused leadership, an overused social intelligence. And so for some of you, you might be creating an exact template that you want and intend to follow sometime soon in terms of using your strengths in this way. And for others, we might be just priming ourselves for more mindful strengths use in the future. And because we are talking about naming something difficult or something we did wrong, it's easy for us to beat ourselves up and to be overly critical. So it can be very useful to conclude this sort of thing with a bow of warmth and love toward ourselves. Maybe a bow of appreciation for making this effort to try and experiment this out. Maybe it's a bow of love and bow of kindness that in reality, we are just doing the best we can. Imperfect and moving forward as best we can. We realize our errors and we try to move forward with strengths.